everyone. Thank you so much for hopping on. I am Jackie Cooper. I'm the host of the GBA talk show as well as Crypto Mom 2, and I want to welcome you everyone to this episode. Definitely remind everyone, please like and subscribe it and share it out with your friends because there are so many wonderful episodes that are coming up. We do not want you to miss any of the information that will help you in your blockchain journey. I am here today with a very special woman who's been in this space for a while, and she has an abundance of knowledge, and I've loved speaking with her. Today, we're going to be talking about the GBA and its mission and everything that it's involved and the reason why you should definitely join the GBA. But before I hop over to her and we talk about her wonderful journey, I'll share a little bit about mine. For those that have heard this before, I apologize, but for those that are new to the show and to the GBA, my background is that I'm an attorney, but I'm also an educator in the special education space, and I'm also an entrepreneur. So I have worn many hats. And in the education side, I'm also an author. And I believe that in order for us to take this journey in the blockchain space, which includes cryptocurrency and NFTs and the metaverse and everything else that's being developed, we have to be knowledgeable about the risks as well as the rewards. And with that, I'm going to just share some disclaimers because we always have to do disclaimers. These shows are educational. They're not financial advice. They're not investment advice. They're not legal advice. We welcome you to talk to your own personal advisor and also invite your advisors to join the GBA because we have many events that go on. So everyone who is in the traditional community really needs to understand more about decentralized finance and the blockchain and the world that is coming and is already here. So with that, I want to welcome Carmen Crypto to the space. And I want to ask that you share with everyone who's listening, because we have it on the audio side as well as those that are on the video side. So a little bit more about your background, how you came to this space, and what you think your own personal mission is, because I know that you are a mentor to many.
First off, thank you so much for having me on the show. Much love to you and your audience watching. Sharing my story, I think, has been more impactful nowadays than it was earlier on in the career. But I think that my journey is like many retail investors in this space. It just so happens that, about 2.5 years later, I'm able to teach others what I have learned and uncover and help protect them from the scars that I have endured, kind of playing around in this space. January 10th of 2021 is when I signed up for my first Coinbase account, and it was with the enticement of $5 of free Bitcoin. I was on vacation from my retail job as a sales leader, and I didn't have anywhere to go. So I figured I'd learn something new. And for that week, I kind of delve into what Coinbase was, started watching some YouTube podcasts, University of YouTube, and something really just impacted me because it was also around this time that GameStop was happening. It felt like a revolution. Meme coins were coming out that first 6 months of that year, and there was just all this financial news in the media about people without money playing the systems and hurting people with money. And it was just fascinating to me. Now, fast forward about 6 months after January, I started to understand that some tokens that I was starting to be exposed to through the power of algorithm on social media were things that I couldn't find on the centralized exchanges that at that time I was transacting on. So by that summer, I found myself in the DEX. By Q3, I was now helping teams run tokens. Now, as smart as I think I am, I was still getting rugged, ruined, and wrecked. But I'm a Vegas girl, so I wasn't playing big bets. But I do think as an early adopter of technology all throughout my life, I understand that You don't place big bets, but you try to understand, how does this work? My journey, further expanded out to trying different roles in this space. So yes, I've been a mod. Yes, I've been an admin. I've been a COO of a token. I have written articles in this space about launching tokens and understand that system. I have sold audits before, any marketing systems. I tried every single role, even an AMA host and Twitter hosting. And I degen my way into replacing my career income with a stable income in this place. Today, I am a head of business development for a decentralized exchange. And I'm also secretary of the Global Blockchain Foundation, which is a kind of sister component to the Government Blockchain Association. I'm relentless. And I think that there are many people who have found a velocity in their career to achieve, but unfortunately has to have a lot of failure in that to elevate to the next ladder step. So unfortunately, I've learned a lot from a lot of failure, and I've watched a lot of failure, I've watched a lot of people get scammed, but I've also met some fantastic people that are our tribe, that understand the impact that this technology can make. And even though a lot of us don't have all the answers, and we're still trying to observe as much and digest as much information as we can, I think what we understand is that there's some really big topics that we need to talk about in terms of what can we do with this tool, what things from Web 2 should remain, in our systems for the future, and what things should go away. And if we can uncover transparency and truth. It's more than just the chart. It's more than just the increased value of an NFT over time. We're seeing a new way that people are going to interact, and it's kind of layered with this ability to finance things, to grow wealth, and to make gains. So for that, there's a lot of emotion in there. And we have a lot of uncertainty and not a lot of education. So people like us standing in front of an audience like this, trying to give them the best experience that we've had, I hope protects them from the things that I've experienced.
So I know in every conversation that I have with someone, whether it's through the GBA or through someone else in the community, different terms are mentioned, and there might be their listeners who don't understand what the terms are. So I wrote down a few so we can kind of explain. There might be those who are listening that are very comfortable with the terms, but still it's always good to review and refresh. So you mentioned DEX. What is a DEX and how is it defined? Now, the other thing that I want to mention to everyone who's listening is there are a lot of laws and a lot of legislation that's going on within our community. So these definitions are evolving and changing. And so from a practical perspective, we might share with you what we know, but I think it's also important for everyone who's listening to take an active part in the politics. It's really important if you're in this community that you reach out and you have a conversation with your local politician. Do they understand what blockchain is? Do they understand what the businesses are within this community? Because if they don't, and they're making the rules that are going to impact you as a consumer or as a business, you need to be aware, especially if you don't understand the terminology, they're not going to understand it either. So let's talk about DEX. What is DEX in your mind?
So a DEX, D as in David, EX, is a decentralized exchange. And it's quite the opposite from a CEX, which is going to be your centralized exchange. Now, when I hang out with the builders in this space, and what I say by builders, owners, founders, CEOs, teams of tokens and NFTs, they need to make a decision on how they're going to be offering their token supply, right? So CEXs need to be understood as centralized institutions, and they're the big ones. Some big names would be, Crypto.com, Coinbase, Binance, and things like that. They're categorized by their tiers based on how much volume they run. So you can have a tier 3 or something like Bitmart, right? And so different centralized institutions are going to have separate, different qualifications and standards for the types of tokens and projects that they list. Oftentimes, a founder, when they consider going and having their token available on a CEX, that to take a couple of things into consideration. There may be standards in terms of how much daily volume they need to have, how many holders they have, and then there has to be a cost associated with their application. This is a barrier to entry that sometimes is really difficult when you take a look at how much money a company on chain needs to have in order to qualify and be able to afford to launch their token on something like crypto.com. It's a huge cost. This is why we have decentralized exchanges. Because the barrier to entry to launch your token on a decentralized exchange could be less, far, far less. Now, a huge major difference between a CEX and a DEX also is where your tokens and assets are being held. When you interact with a centralized exchange, your tokens are held within that wallet unless you buy them and move them to a non-custodial wallet. So this is why we see a lot of concern when it comes to consumer privacy and protections when big exchanges fail, because as an investor, if you hold your assets there and they stop trading, you can no longer transact or take full ownership over your assets. On a decentralized exchange, they don't hold your tokens on there. It's basically a tool to help you transact and swap. So founders will take a supply and pair it up with a native token that's associated with the decentralized exchange. And then through that swap, investors can come in and trade their token for token, their coin for token. From there, decentralized exchanges really hold a different type of philosophy because they're not, through that transaction, they're not holding your assets. If you are going to buy a Binance-based token, you're going to take your BNB, you're going to use that DEX, and you're going to swap it for the token that you want to purchase. That token does not live in a wallet that's attached to the decentralized exchange. It's going to go directly to your own personal wallet. So now it's up to you to protect it and to understand the security best behaviors so that you don't put your wallet at risk. Because if it is lost from your wallet, there's nobody there to help you with that. And that makes decentralized exchanges kind of intimidating for people because there's no customer support and all these other luxuries that we have in all the other ways that we transact with fiat. You can buy something. If something went bad, you can call the bank and they'll protect you and get it refunded, and then you got to go to court and fight it all out, right? But there's protections for consumers for that. But the good news is that by running on decentralized exchanges, when you understand the behaviors and things to do to protect yourself, the glorious freedom of really being able to own your own assets, I think, is something that is not available to us in other institutions, and it's a great thing for us.
I love your explanation. It covered so much. And that's another reason why I think that it's important for everyone to look at what the GBA offers, because there are individuals like yourself and others who have that deep knowledge that can also provide the guidance as people are navigating into this space. I'm going to show our website for the moment, because we're going to be talking about one type of training that is being offered. And I think this is important because also whether you are a consumer just looking at, as you said, a token or a cryptocurrency, or whether you're in the business and looking at how do you create a service to answer a problem and a solution, there's a need for assessment of those organizations. And because as you explained, there's a lot of layers to this. So the blockchain maturity model is one of the certifications that the GBA is offering. And I'm actually going to be going through the certification process in July. So I'm very excited about learning about it. Would you like to share more about what you know about the trainings and the services that the GBA offers?
Yeah, let's first talk about the need for this that exists. In the space of blockchain, and especially the monetization of that technology, there's a low barrier to entry. In fact, almost no barrier, but a small amount of funds in terms of any person deploying a smart contract and creating a community and taking investors' money. Because of that, when investors come into this space and they don't have all of the education or all of the right support or don't even know what resources to trust, it puts them at risk at putting their money into things that are inauthentic, maybe scammy, or things that really aren't viable, right? So the need for a standard in this space really, I think the result of this was creating smart contract auditors. And I think a lot of our retail investors have put a lot of um, trust in the ability for a smart contract to be audited and come out with a score. Now, a lot of people in this space that interact and transact do not code. Okay, so the beauty of the GBA is that the GBA is using the blockchain maturity model to kind of go beyond the code and seeing from a entity standpoint, if you're a tech solution partner, we want to take a look at the whole picture of your business. We want to identify some key ways that you're building your company and say, where are we kind of categorizing you? Are you centralized? Are you decentralized? What kind of officers do you have on your team? Do you have security officers? Are you coding and building your business ready for regulation? What kind of consumer protections and privacy, rails do you have built into your system? That blockchain maturity model being developed by the best brains at the GBA is so beneficial to us because aside from the code, the code is there to commemorate the intention of the business, and it operates and it automates, and the velocity at which the transactions can go through is really unmatched by legacy systems. But at the same time, we need to build for the long term. And we need to make sure that we don't see some of the bad things that happen in the space where contracts get launched, there's a big money grab, and then people are left with their hands out saying what happened, right? Because that happens too often. So with the GBA, I can tell you from my experience, coming from a space where I went from transacting as a centralized investor, going into DeFi, now becoming part of teams, and now growing into a role as an educator, supporter, and a business development, person in this space. I look at this and I go, man, there's a lot of people who need to see the GBA. It is so wildly different from some of the other conferences that are so easily accessible by retail investors. That's going to be like your New York NFT, your Denver ETH, all of these, Art Basel and Miami Week. Those are fun. But when you walk into those, it's really a place where I'm going to find lots of NFTs. I'm going to find tokens. I might find things that I want to invest in. The GBA is a different vibe. It's got some of the best minds from wildly diverse backgrounds from different institutions, both legacy and on-chain, that can come together and talk about some of the biggest topics that we need to really identify. Consumer protection, decentralized, centralized institutions. What are some of the standards that we should hold, and how should we vet each other through these processes? And when we find great entities that could help us, elevate how we use our tools from Web 2 and bring them into the Web 3 future, well, we have the ability to really hash out some of the philosophies of what should stay and what should go. And because we have some of that major energy and synergy happening, we have access to people on the Hill so that we can show them that proof of concept. We need to have people understanding that this is more than just the rails for transactions across the globe, but there are some details in the tech that can help us understand truth and transparency and uncover objective facts that we don't have access to because centralized institutions have that. And we don't get to see that.
Sorry, I was on mute. That's very true. I mean, I know that I've interviewed a lot of members within the GBA, and their use cases are so innovative but so needed, both within the healthcare side, but also from the military application side to just digital identification, privacy protection. I mean, there's so many layers here. I know that for those that are on the YouTube side, definitely go over to the GPA YouTube and subscribe. Or if you want to go to Crypto Mom 2, you can subscribe to my YouTube. All the conversations, I mean, right now, and again, everyone's going to be hearing this for a long time, our conversations. But in July of 2023, I mean, I've interviewed about 20 people, so 20 members, and there are about 400 members. So I have a lot more to go. But again, in terms of the diversity of our membership, from the government to international countries, to private industry, to individuals, to those in the media, everyone who's trying to understand applications, as well as how this is going to be used in a way to benefit our community. So I know that we have an upcoming conference in September, but I want everyone, especially if you find this after September, just go back to the gbaglobal.org website, because we're constantly doing events. But the event in September, which I'm really excited to attend and learn about, is all about artificial intelligence, which has been in existence for a while. It's been around for a while. It's just that now it's becoming more trendy. And so more people are aware of how it's being used and where it's being used. I know you're actively involved in the community. What are your thoughts about the artificial intelligence side, the event that's coming up in September, and what the GBA is doing in terms of educating all of us about the direction that this is going?
So I never ever want to miss a GBA conference. They have them twice a year. And for me, it's the one conference that really stands out, that gives me a whole different perspective out of the normal circles that I daily work in. So this one coming up is going to be really interesting, because when I take a look, I'm 41, I call myself an elder millennial. And I take a look at all of the milestones that have happened in my lifetime on a global scale. And because my love of blockchain and what I've been learning this year, to watch AI become so accessible, I think that my perceptions of its impact is quite interesting. To see AI and blockchain come out feels like, in blockchain, we need to loudly talk about how we can authenticate things on chain, and how we can use that technology to authenticate and timestamp events that happen between two people, especially with money. Reason being is that when we take a look at AI, I like to call it a calculator for words. And now that we have a calculator for words, and we know that we have abilities to have deep fakes and things made that look and sound like the person is saying those things, now more than ever, we need to have a path that gives us the origin of things, the authenticity of things. So if this podcast is being broadcasted out, and we can commemorate that this originated from us, and it's used in the future, and adjusted, and somebody says, oh no, here's an example of what Carmen or Jackie said, and they use AI to make something untruthful. Well, we want the ability to say we did not say that, right? Because now our reputations, our careers, impact to our finances, or ability to do business could be at harm. Because that technology exists, I think the world just gave us, the ability to answer that. But what will that look like? Well, we need the best minds in this space. Unfortunately, the optics that the media puts out there is that we're untrustworthy, that, people that live and work in this space are out for the money. And that isn't the case in every single one of us. There are brilliant minds here that are early adopters, and we reach one and we teach one. So we take our time, and we know that we're going to get the ball rolling, but it requires conversations like this, one-on-one, to connect with somebody. And the beautiful thing is that with blockchain, you can see and use it to talk to every single person in every single industry across every single country in the planet. There's a way that this tool can be integrated for positive result.
I agree. I definitely agree. We are going to have more than one conversation, I know, because there's so many things to talk about. For those that would like to join the GBA, it's very easy. All you need to do is to go over to gbaglobal.org, and look at the area that applies to you. What else would you like to share about the membership and or anything that you think they should know about the organization as well as the GBF in terms of its mission and what it's thinking about doing in the future, and the reason why we're suggesting that people join the GBA, because it will be supporting the overall support of the GBF?
I think one thing that helps people feel more confident about the place that they're in is to have some of their biggest questions answered. And for me and my relationship with the GBA, what it afforded me is this confidence knowing that it wasn't just blockchain and crypto against the government, that there were entities that are looking for the answers, that there are great people in our government institutions that do understand what this can do, what the future of a good implementation of this technology can do for the constituents of every single state and for this country, and then beyond that, the globe. So it wasn't until I became a part of the GBA and I could meet these people face to face and have a different perspective outside of tokens and NFTs launching, that I was able to go back to my communities and become an educator and tell them, look, you know how to transact. And even for those that are building some of the most like foundational infrastructure tools for blockchain, some of them don't even know how to do what you do. So there are both of us at the table, but there's a gap between us. Those that are building major infrastructure, because the optics are so bad, they don't want to hang out with the token builders. But how you guys build on the blockchain cannot be ignored. So I encourage everyone, take you like as much as you go to all the NFT conferences around the country, take a shot, become a member, and get more educated. Take the BMM training when you can. Even if you work for an entity, see if your entities can help, expand your education and your knowledge by understanding some of these systems. It's not just something we're putting out there. These are things that we're working hard to get adopted by big global institutions so that we can truly set a standard. So if anything, you can get exposed to some of the things that we are building, and maybe it'll help influence you in a positive way where you take a second thought in what kind of investor or what kind of employee you are in the blockchain. Together, when we align our philosophies and can agree on the standards that we should have, then we put that down and we take the next step. So I want to see the velocity of this move in a forward direction with everybody coming to the table to put their piece in and their 2 cents so we can build the best tools as we go forward.
I agree with that. I also want to share that, when I went to the last event, which was in May, there was so much that I learned, and also about the individuals and entities. For example, I did not know that the United Nations was using blockchain within their pension side. So there are organizations that you would not normally think of that have already adopted and are integrating, and this is showing the standardization. And again, that's another reason why we need to have more individuals at the conferences, so there can be this conversation about where else it can be applied and how else can we teach more people about it. So I definitely support what you were saying about both the blockchain maturity model training as well as the joining. So for everyone who's listening, the links will be embedded below for sure. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself or to Carmen, and we're happy to answer the questions and also point you in the direction of other individuals who can also connect with you in the GBA. And again, subscribe to the GBA YouTube, subscribe to the talk show. This is how you're going to, in addition to joining, this is going to how you're going to learn more about who the members are and the diversity of the projects that they're working with. And as I always say at the end of all my shows, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're also interconnected and we're all part of one world. Thank you and have a great day.